What's up, people? Smitty at Smitty Shop. Happy Thanksgiving. It's Turkey Day 2020. Just came into the shop this morning to pull this in so it can dry off. I'm not going to be doing any work to it today. I'm going to Mom and Dad's for turkey. But this weekend's project is going to be getting my new plow truck in shape. And obviously it's new to me. This one's an 07. It's got a 5.3. It's a salvage unit from Copart. Had a tree fall on the roof, as you can see. I don't care about any of that, though. My old plow truck broke in half, which is what happens here in the Northeast. They pretty much just get rusted until they fall apart. So last week or 2 weeks ago, I added that back rack, obviously the emergency light on the top, and then a nice big LED backup light for it, since I'll primarily be using this thing for plowing and towing stuff to the crusher. What I'm going to do this weekend with this gem, so it's pretty solid underneath. It's got a $153, I think, on the clock. All the brake lines have been previously replaced, which is nice, with the exception of the two that run on the rear axle. So I ordered a couple of stainless pieces for that. I'm going to replace those two brake lines. The plow I have for the Fisher Minute Mount is actually a full 8-foot, which is a big plow for a 1500 series truck. So I decided I'm going to upgrade the suspension. I got a couple of strut assemblies for it for the front, and then I got a pair of coilover shocks for the rear, just to beef the thing up a little bit. But in addition to that, I also got a 3-inch lift kit for it, which is not a big deal. It's spacers for the front struts and then blocks for the back. So I'm going to install that as well. So that's the project for Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be my Black Friday special. So let's dig in. All right, if you look down at the top of the strut, front strut here, you just barely see the one I'm on. I get a long 1/2-inch extension. Those are 18-inch nuts. We're gonna zip 3 of them off on this side, 3 of them off on the driver's side, and then we'll put it back up in the air and work on the underside. All right, driver's side, you probably get a little bit clearer look. There you go. 3/18, zip them off. All right, there's what we got on the bottom. A couple of the 15 millimeter head on these 2 bolts holding the bottom in. And it's almost that easy. Almost. So there you have it. The bolts are all out. It's a matter of prying this thing towards you. Got pressure on it, so you know you gotta be a little careful, and that strut is gonna drop down like so. And this is what I meant when I said it's almost that easy. You know, that strut comes up down through the A-arm, and it's fairly tight. And unfortunately, it's a little too tight to get past that inner tie rod. You gotta zip the outer off and just swing that out of the way. All right, so that's all you do. You swing those tie rods out of the way, and the struts don't literally drop out because the coil spring is tight right up against the CV axle. You just kind of twist them. You let them ride the coil out, and they come out. I mean, those are a real quick, simple replace. And you can see they're not that old. I mean, they still got tags on them. Those are Tenecos. I could probably reuse them. You know, it's just the body of them was starting to get rusted. You know, there you go. Again, Northeast, rust. I'm gonna lay them next to the El Cheapos that I bought and just make sure that the El Cheapos are at least comparable to what I'm pulling out. There they are. They match up perfectly. Just as heavy a coil spring, you know, in appearance anyway. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't putting some flimsy thing in replacement for something that was heavier, but you know, one cheapo for another cheapo. Just one cheapo without rust. All right, so next thing to do is add the caps on top of these, which are going to create the lift, which is going to make it a little bit more challenging to get the strut back in. Kit, I got this on eBay, and this is actually from a place called Torch Off-Road. It's kind of cool that they add a little sticker pack there. some other stuff. Lower spacer for the front strut, upper spacer for the front strut, and I got a customer banging on the door. Where were we? Had to do a quick New York State inspection. Even though I'm closed today, I got some great customers, and he was one of them. So I try and accommodate them when I can. God knows they're patient with me. Torch off-road. There you go. Blocks with the correct angle for the pinion. I don't know if you can see that in video. It's got a slight angle for it for the pinion. New U-bolts, which was important since this is a rusty crusty. And then again, for the front, spacer on the top, spacer on the bottom. We're going to bolt those spacers up to the top of the strut and fight with getting them in. Let's see what happens. Instructions mentioned, and yes, I actually breezed through the instructions, is make sure that your studs don't protrude over the top of the spacer, because obviously it won't sit flush. So what I'm going to have to do is just mark these real quick, lop the top of them off, and then install this thing. All right, there you go. All mounted up, nice and flush, no more studs sticking out. Now we just have to fight to get them in. All right, there's a strut in there. I just want to show you that I marked my bolt hole so that the strut lines up correctly. You can put these 180 out and they'll be wrong. You know, it'll bolt up on the bottom. Holes will not line up on the top, so just be mindful of that. Just make a mark or because just like taking the strut out, putting it back in, you got to kind of twist it in a circle and ride the coil spring up into the perch. All right, so next thing you should do is disconnect your sway bar end links. That'll take tension off that lower control arm. And then you're also going to have to disconnect your upper ball joint and just secure your rotor and stuff so that doesn't go flopping anywhere. Because what'll happen is the upper control arm will bottom out on that bracket right there long before you'll get room for to swing that up in there. So I just have one bolt holding the strut. It's kind of hanging there. That way I have some movement to get it around. I'm not fighting the tension of the spring. And then we'll be able to swing it into place. All right, there's what we got. That's in there now. I got one bolt holding it on the top, so I'm going to lower it. I'm going to start the other two front bolts, or upper bolts, sorry. And then I'm going to zip everything down. Well, I got distracted. I had a buddy of mine stop by. And I just finished putting this front end in. So there you got the spacer in the top, spacer in the bottom. Everything's connected back up. Same over here, obviously. And now we're on to the back. I just ripped the back shocks out. Next thing is cutting those U-bolts. I'm going to see if I can loosen them. Get the U-bolts off, put the blocks in. And there you go, your finished product. Had to cut the old U-bolts off with the torch. Got interrupted by a couple more customers. But she's done. New U-bolts, new blocks. I put a coilover shock in the rear. I don't know that'll do a darn thing or not, but it was cheap enough. And I wanted to replace the rear shocks anyway, which were original, so we went with the coilovers. So that's it. I'm going to swap out some tires on this thing. I actually need to do the rear brake line, but they didn't have the wheel cylinders in stock, so that's going to have to wait for another day. All right, so here is our gratuitous comparison shot. Before, and there's your after. I guess we need tires now, maybe a little bit bigger. And there you have it. Marginally better, and actually in between photos there was a 16-inch snowstorm, so we got to plow it for the first time. Not too shabby. And at least the plow doesn't scrape on the ground as you're driving down the road, like it did on the old 1500. So that's it. On to the next project.